Some kinds of waiting do not look dramatic. They look like a man waking up before his alarm, not because he is disciplined, but because his mind got there first. They look like him lying still for a few seconds, staring at the ceiling fan, already feeling behind before his feet even touch the floor. They look like checking his phone while the room is still dark. No new email, no missed call, no message that changes anything. Just another morning, asking him to keep going, as if he is not quietly scared of where his life is heading. And after enough days like that, the delay stops feeling like a delay. It starts feeling like a sentence, like life is saying something about you, about your timing, your worth, your future. And if that season lasts long enough, a man does not only ask, "When will something open?" He starts asking, "What if nothing is opening because I am not enough for the life I wanted?" Micah was 33, which felt young in some rooms and late in others. He worked in an office where people had learned how to sound confident even when they were guessing. He had gotten good at that too. He kept his hair neat, answered emails carefully, knew how to nod in meetings like he had a longer plan than he actually did. His job was not terrible. That was almost part of the problem. It paid enough to keep things going, not enough to let him exhale. Every month felt like maintenance, rent, fuel, a little sent to his mother when she would not ask, but he knew she needed it. A few things he kept putting off because he told himself he would deal with them once life felt more stable. He had been trying to move into something better for nearly a year, a different company, a stronger position, something with more room, more dignity, more future in it. But every time a door seemed close, it stalled. A second interview, then silence, a promising call, then a delay, an opportunity that looked real enough to hope over, but not real enough to stand on. He never said it this way, but what scared him was not just career uncertainty. It was the thought of becoming the kind of man who keeps saying, "I'm figuring things out," long after people stop believing him. There were small humiliations he never named. At lunch, he started eating later than everyone else, so he would not have to sit through another conversation about promotions, investments, wedding plans, relocation, next steps. He hated how certain phrases could change the temperature inside his body. Long term, leadership track, we're expanding. I finally heard back. He would smile, stand up, throw away his cup, and head to the restroom just to be alone for a minute. Sometimes he opened LinkedIn in a bathroom stall with his tie loosened, scrolling through other people's announcements with a dull ache in his throat, happy to share, grateful for this new chapter, excited for what's ahead. He never stayed on there long, just long enough to feel worse. At night, he kept a spreadsheet on his laptop with job applications, dates, follow-ups, names of hiring managers. He updated it like a person trying to prove to himself that effort was still happening. One Friday evening, his younger cousin pulled up in a newer car at a family dinner, and everyone made a small circle around it outside. Micah stood back with his hands in his pockets, smiling when it was appropriate. On the ride home, he drove with no music on. When he got to his building, he did not get out right away. He sat in the parked car and looked at his own reflection in the windshield. Tired, still here, still explaining his life in future tense. The email came the next week. He was at his desk, halfway through revising a report no one would remember in 2 days, when his phone lit up beside the keyboard. He knew the sender name before he even opened it. His pulse jumped anyway. "Thank you again for your patience. The process is taking longer than expected. We will be in touch when there is an update." That was all. No apology that meant anything. No timeline that could be trusted. Just the clean, polite language of another delay. He kept reading it as if one more sentence might appear. Around him, everything stayed normal. Someone coughed. Someone asked for a file. A notification chimed from another desk. He clicked back into the spreadsheet and stared at the numbers without seeing them. That evening, His mother called and asked, gently, "Any good news yet?" He looked at the wall and said, "Not yet. Maybe soon." After the call, he went into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stood there too long without taking anything out. Then he shut it and leaned one hand on the counter. Not rejected, not released, just held in place again. And for some reason, that felt lonelier. That weekend, he decided he would fix it by becoming more intense. He woke early, made a stricter plan, opened 12 tabs, revised his resume again, rewrote lines that did not need rewriting. He told himself he needed more edge, more hunger, more discipline. He watched men online speak in clean, hard sentences about winning, about domination, about refusing weakness. He let their voices fill the room because silence had started saying too much. By late afternoon, his shoulders were tight, jaw sore, eyes burning. Still, he kept going. Apply, refresh, compare, apply again. At one point, he opened the profile of a man his age who had just been made director somewhere. Same industry, same years of experience, maybe less. Micah stared at the photo longer than he should have. Something dark and ashamed moved through him. He shut the laptop, then opened it again a minute later. That was the state he was living in now. Unable to stop, unable to find relief in continuing. That night he tried to pray, but it came out strained. Please open something. Please do not let me stay like this. Please do not let this be my life. He did not say the next sentence out loud, but it was there. Because if this keeps dragging on, I don't know how much of myself I can keep holding together. A few days later, he took the early train to a short-term contract interview across town. The platform was cold enough that everyone kept their hands hidden. A man in work boots stood near the edge, shifting his weight. A woman in scrubs leaned against a pillar with her eyes closed. Micah looked up at the board. Delayed. He almost laughed. Of course. He rubbed his face, then looked down the tracks. Fog sat low over the rails, thick and pale, swallowing the distance. You could see the path for a while, then not anymore. Not because it ended, because it disappeared into what the eye could not hold. He stood there with his bag hanging from one shoulder. The train had not been canceled. The rails had not gone missing. Nothing had been taken away. It was just not safe to move forward blind. No revelation came, no warmth. Just that image staying with him longer than it should have. A road still there. A delay that did not mean denial. A pause caused by something he could not see from where he stood. And for the first time in months, his frustration loosened just enough to make room for another possibility. The real break did not happen on the platform. It happened 2 nights later in his apartment, with the sink full of dishes and his laptop open to another unfinished application. He had typed the first line of a cover letter 3 times. Each version sounded like someone else, capable, focused, eager for the future. He stared at the screen, then deleted the paragraph again. The room was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Then his father texted, "Any news on the job thing?" Micah looked at the message and felt something inside him give way. Not because the question was cruel, it was ordinary. That was what made it hurt. He set the phone face down, closed the laptop, sat at the table with both elbows on his knees and both hands locked behind his neck. And there, in that small kitchen with the overhead light too bright and the dishes still unwashed, he finally told himself the truth. He was not only tired of waiting, he was ashamed of the man he felt himself becoming while he waited. The man who flinched at simple questions. The man who measured his value by announcements from strangers. The man who kept hoping one open door would rescue him from the private fear that maybe he was falling behind for real. If this opens, I'll feel okay. If this opens, I won't feel small anymore. If this opens, I can finally respect myself again. That was the part that broke him, because he could suddenly see how much he had asked one opportunity to save. Not just his finances, his identity, his peace. His right to believe his life was not quietly narrowing. He cried then, bent forward in the kitchen chair, not loudly, not beautifully, just tired enough to stop pretending. And in that tiredness, something else surfaced, soft, almost unwelcome. What if the delay was not only keeping something from him? What if it was also keeping him from running into the next room with the same panic, the same shame, the same desperate need to be confirmed? That thought did not solve anything, but it told the truth in a way panic never had. Nothing became easier overnight. He still checked his phone too early some mornings, still felt his chest tighten when someone mentioned good news, still had moments in traffic where his future looked like a dark window he could not see through. But the way he treated himself inside the waiting began to change. He started leaving his phone on the counter while the coffee brewed, just for 5 minutes at first. 5 minutes without letting anxiety touch him before the day did. He stopped watching the men online who made him feel like fear was a character flaw. He went for short walks after work, not because walks fix anything, but because sitting in the same room every night with the same thoughts had stopped being bearable. One evening, he told a friend, "I think I've been acting like if my career doesn't move, then I don't get to feel okay." His friend was quiet for a second. Then he said, "That's too much weight to put on one door." Micah nodded, eyes on the table. He still prayed, but now the prayers were smaller, less frantic. "Stay with me here. Do not let fear choose for me. Do not let me become hard while nothing is clear." The future was still foggy, but he was beginning, slowly, to stop calling fog abandonment. Some seasons do not heal by changing fast. They heal by changing what the waiting means. Micah's life was still unresolved, still modest, still slower than he wanted. But the delay no longer carried the same accusation. It was not proof that he had been forgotten, not proof that other men were being handed a life he had somehow failed to qualify for. Sometimes grace does not feel like movement. Sometimes it feels like being kept from running on a wound you have not admitted is still open. Sometimes it looks like a train that has not arrived yet, not because the road is gone, but because you cannot yet see far enough ahead. So if you are in a season where nothing seems to open, maybe do not call it rejection too quickly. Maybe the path is still there. Maybe the delay is holding more mercy than you can name yet. And if you are tired, really tired, let this just sit beside you for a moment. Not as a promise that everything will work out the way you want, just as a quieter truth. Not everything delayed is lost. Sometimes what feels like delay is grace in disguise.